forward? Seeing none, I'll close the call to public and move on to our first item.
Item number 1 is evaluation of a request for a rezone of Assessor's parcel number 40264-093 from an RE 10A residential recreation 10-acre minimum lot size zone to an RE 1A residential recreation 1-acre minimum lot size zone to bring the property into compliance in the Beaver Dam vicinity. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. Is the applicant for this item present? At this time, I'll open it up for any comments or questions by the commission.
I just have a pretty obvious question, what the answer is. On the zoning maps here, there's several areas around that are already zoned that way. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Abbott, what it appears had happened, they were all zoned to an RE 10A when we did the countywide rezoning back, or when we first established zoning. And these parcels were split off quite some time ago. And we've had several of these come before the commission in the past couple of years where they've come in and tried to get them into compliance, because when they had split them a long time ago, they were out of compliance at that time.
So it's the same rezoning that's been done multiple times.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, a second by Commissioner Morris. Any other discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is an evaluation of a request for amendment to the South Mojave Area Plan from an AR agricultural residential land use designation to a C commercial land use designation for assessor parcel number 227-21084 in the Fort Mojave vicinity. The Mojave County General Plan designates this area as general commercial. The applicant requests this amendment to the South Mojave Area Plan to allow for commercial retail commercial retail building. In the maps that we've provided, I believe we have included the general and area plans. Chris, are you able to go back or forward? Yeah, there we go. So this is the general plan map, and it does show that according to our general plan, it is in our general commercial land use designation. And then the next slide shows our area plan map, which is the South Mojave Area Plan, which this item would be amending. And it shows that the subject property is actually in the agricultural residential land use designation, and the commercial slash manufacturing designation is just a lot to the east. We've received 2 letters of opposition and a petition. With that petition, it does trigger the 3/4 vote that would be required by the Board of Supervisors, with 29% of the owners opposed and 47% of the land that those owners own is opposed. So that doesn't affect necessarily your decision, but when it goes to the Board of Supervisors, then it would require the majority vote by the board. Staff is recommending approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. First of all, is the applicant present for this item? Would you like to address the commission? Only if there's questions, okay. Thank you. I do have a couple of people that have signed up to speak on this item. First of all, Mr. Terry Wallen. Ms. Terry Wallen, I'm sorry. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Terry Wallen. I live currently at 3838 Millard Drive in Bullhead. However, I own property that I was not able to sell at 5257 South Pasadena, which is just across the street from the proposed property. A number of our neighbors, we're talking about not wanting this to be rezoned because of many issues, and there are many issues that need to be considered. First of all, the business would be accessible only by dirt roads from all directions, and with the additional traffic comes additional dust, creating poor air quality. There's currently Walmart coming up Hammer Lane, which is only one way in, you can't go out, so that diverts all traffic down to Corona or Gardena, or the preceding street, Torrance. So a lot more people will be affected by the dust. There's huge amounts of potholes from general traffic. The roads are not maintained. They'll only become worse with the big trucks and additional traffic. Our experience with existing businesses, there's a lot of commercial trash, garbage blowing around. Additional businesses near our neighborhood would make it only worse. Safety is a real big concern with people with small children, as there's more traffic, thus creating danger for children and possibility of tragic accidents. And there are currently disabled and mentally disabled, physically and mentally, children in the neighborhood, which is a safety concern. Another concern is the rezoning is going to increase the property value of the commercial sector, but it's going to decrease the residential value and make it more difficult for those of us who would want to sell in the future. Many of us bought these properties here with the understanding that it was residential and that it would not become commercial. Realtors should not have made such a claim, being they can't see into the future. If we had known that they might possibly rezone, we probably would not have bought there, nor would some of our neighbors. Some of our people in the neighborhood are elderly, and there's people there that have been there for 30-some years, and they say the same thing, that they would not want that neighborhood to be rezoned because they use it as residential. They want to keep it residential. With additional driving through the neighborhood comes the possibility of bringing more burglaries, druggies, pedophiles, which is a concern by many. And currently there's many unused, undeveloped, and developed commercial properties that are for sale or could be used for commercial in the commercial sector, so there really isn't a need to expand the commercial footprint.
Go ahead and finish.
Okay, I guess I'm done.
You can finish if you like.
Okay. There were a number of other people that wanted to come and that were against the rezone as well. However, when I went around for signatures, some of them were not home. So what you see there is who was home, and some people weren't available to have them sign the petition. And I guess I'm done with that. And I did send the letter to Scott, I'm not sure which Scott, and my name got removed off the bottom because we added more of the concerns of those in the neighborhood. So the letter doesn't say who actually put it together. So if you'd like, I do have the original, and I've got my name and number on it.
So the letter with the petitions was submitted by you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and that's all that I have to say. Would you like this with my name on the bottom? Oh, give it up here.
I have a question for the applicant, for the speaker.
Yes. I'll give this to you. Sorry. Yes?
Not that it really matters to me that much, but you mentioned something about you got these signatures, so there's a roughly 60 signatures we've got here for people who's opposing it.
Right.
And you were the one that got those?
I am the one who initiated the petition after talking to a number of my neighbors there in that area, that they were opposed to it, and I said, well, I would be more than happy to put together a petition and go around and get the signatures, because I'm very adamant about it staying residential as well.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You made a statement during your speech about the land, the values are going to go down. What proof do you have of that?
Well, I don't have proof other than, I guess, hearsay and people who have been in the commercial sector and own properties, both commercial and residential, and they had indicated that that would depreciate our residential because now we're intermixed with business, and it would also make it more difficult to sell if any of us wanted to sell.
Have there been any sales in your area in the last 6 months?
For commercial,
No, for residential?
that I cannot answer. I don't.
That there has been,
There have?
yeah.
Okay, okay. That I don't know.
Thank you. Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for listening.
I have Glenn Rajanimi. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Glenn Rajanimi. I reside at 5297 Pasadena Road, directly across the street from the proposed rezone, and I'm just here to, in opposition of the rezone. I feel that the zoning, the way it is right now, with Huntington being basically the dividing line of what is commercial, and then Pasadena, both sides being residential, I don't see a benefit to rezoning this commercial directly across the street from residential property. I also own the 2 acres of property directly to the south of this parcel, so in one way it would benefit me to have those, my values would go up and it would give me 3.5 acres of commercial property, but at this time I can't see where it would be a benefit to the neighbors that live in that neighborhood right now to have this as a commercial piece of property. So, and being that we are on gravel roads, it will increase traffic. We've had a lot of theft in the commercial areas. I lease out some of my properties, my commercial properties, to people, and we've been experiencing quite a bit of theft. So I just don't want that any closer to where I reside. And the main reason I bought the 2 acres across the street was to kind of create a buffer for myself from the commercial area. So with that, I'm in opposition of the rezone.
One question, the map you have on the screen, are the parcels in pink your parcels?
Yeah, the parcel's in pink, and then the darker one on the corner are my parcels, yes. So
And the yellow is the subject parcel, so you own a couple parcels in the commercial portion and then 4 parcels in the residential?
Correct, I own 4 parcels in the commercial portion, and then my 2 acres are just adjacent to it on the Pasadena side. So that would, in essence, give me, in the future, if this rezone were to go through, 3.5 acres, and that would increase the value of my property, but I think it would have, it would probably decrease the value of my home that is directly across the street from the proposed rezone.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker, of the commission?
I have a question for staff,
Go ahead.
and I'm just throwing this out on the table because I basically don't know. What's it going to take to get those roads, are the roads and streets in that area, are they on the county map for maintenance, or does anybody know?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mill, We do have Greg Vanderveer from our Public Works Department here, and he might be able to help us out. And while he's going up, I have our GIS system up, and I can take a look, and it will tell me if they're maintained.
Yeah, good morning, Commission. I do believe those roads are on our maintenance system as gravel roads, but I don't believe they are, I know they're not on our system for any kind of paved,
Okay.
they're not, so.
How often do your gravel roads, graded roads, get graded? The reason I'm asking, I have been in that area 3 or 4 times the last 2 months, and it's basically like an off-road track.
I don't know the frequency that they receive maintenance, but
Okay.
Mr.
I would have to confirm definitively whether they're on the system or not. I wasn't prepared to bring our list.
Right, and I understand that.
Mr. Chairman, just looking on our county GIS, it does show under the layer that shows maintained roads by the county that it is maintained but unpaved.
Yeah. I was
Thank
pretty
you.
certain that they were on our list.
Okay.
And I would have to contact our road department, our road division, to find out the frequency, but
I understand.
It-
I was just,
you know,
but I'll put it
probably
like
twice
this.
a year at bare minimum.
Okay, where I'll put it like this, it's been a long time since that I have worked in that area, and I've seen a road that bad, or not just that road, but there are several of them in that track that are bad need of maintenance.
Okay,
Thank you, Greg.
thank you.
The applicant, would you like to address any of the comments or have anything to add? Okay. Commissioners, any other comments, questions on this item? Yes, Mr. Jacks.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Roger, go ahead.
Thank you. For the staff, since I'm relatively new to the commission, when you look through the process of recommending an approval, is it pretty much a checklist that you go down every time? I mean, that's kind of what I see when I'm looking at it. Or do you also take into account any trending data or opposition to it? Could you help me understand a little bit more how that process goes?
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jacks, when we take an application, what we're looking at is kind of how you described, is does it check off all these boxes? Does it meet our zoning ordinance requirements, our general plan, area plans? So we're kind of looking at it in that kind of aspect. We don't take into consideration the opposition that we receive, or if people are in favor of it, we don't take that into consideration. That's where the commission would come into play. We do look at existing precedences, so if there had been a rezone recently in that area or on that side, then we would take that into consideration as well. We couldn't find any where they came before the board, or before the commission and board, to try to rezone along Pasadena there. So we didn't really have anything to go off of. What we were looking at when we looked at this application was that the general plan did designate this area as general commercial. And so there is some not sure the word I'm looking for, but there is some reasoning for allowing commercial on that side, because the general plan did allow, or did designate that area as general commercial. But then our area plan does conflict with the general plan and show it a little bit differently. So we're recommending approval because it meets all of our requirements. There is commercial zoning in the vicinity, so it's not considered spot zoning. It does meet our general plan land use designation and policy. So that's where we're making our recommendation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abbott?
Well, my question you've partially answered, and my question was going to be, if you had these roughly 60 signatures, would you make the same recommendations? And I believe you answered that question.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Abbott, like I said, we don't look at the opposition or what people are saying, but we look at the application itself.
Well, another question. In the general plan, and I've been on the general plan, rewriting a general plan before, I probably should know this, but when it's in the general plan as commercial, what are the requirements for those roads to be? It's pretty hard for general commercial to be in an area like Mr. Meal commented those roads are.
To speak to the general plan and what requirements come with general commercial designation, I couldn't expound too much on that. I maybe have to ask Chris to speak to that. But one thing we do look at, or when a commercial property comes into the area or to a new development, we take them through the site plan process, which requires them to meet all of our county standards. And so once that property or that development goes into that site plan review, the roads would be looked at that time. And our Public Works Department looks at how many trips that specific business or commercial entity would be making, and whether or not that would warrant the need for paved roads, unpaved roads, or improvements to the roads. And so we do look at the condition of the road at the site plan phase and whether or not it needs to be improved almost on a case-by-case basis when a development comes into the area.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Morris.
Thank you. I too have been involved in the general plan and the area plan process over the last decade. And it is at least my understanding that the general plan is a plan for the entire county that basically designates areas for use under the general plan. On the other hand, the area plan tends to go into detail looking at the specifics of the area, and that's why it's a little more detailed than the general plan. To me, it makes sense that demarcation between the commercial and the residential be on a back lot line, not on a street that faces both commercial and residential property, because then you've got the site visibility stuff, issues, everything else, screening issues. It just doesn't seem correct to in my view, to approve that as a commercial use when you've got the affected residential uses. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner.
Mr. Rahumanji, got a question for you. That the lot at your house is on, is zoned R1?
No, it's a AR zoning,
Okay.
agricultural residential.
Okay, and that the properties across the street are zoned, they're commercial?
No, they're zoned AR also.
Okay, when you purchased your property, you knew somewhere down the line, something like this may happen?
No, I did not. I wasn't, at the time I purchased my property, I wasn't aware of the general plan and that potentially across the street from my house would be commercial property. I always thought that Huntington Road was the westerly border, and both sides of Huntington are commercial. And that's why I purchased my commercial property on Huntington Road and Lakewood Road, because those are the commercial areas. Never did I think that Pasadena would become commercial.
And you are the Realtor also, correct?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead. Commissioner Mill, go ahead. Oh,
Yeah.
Commissioner Brule, go ahead.
I just lost my thought. I'll get back to that. I wanted to ask, the general plan and the area plan are in conflict right now. So it was, as I know, you're reviewing the general plan because statutorily we have to have a general plan, but it is so broad that we can have some conflict between the area plan and general plan. It's probably not unheard of. Would the county then, how would the county correct that conflict? And wouldn't it logically fall to the area plan and to correct the general plan to come into alignment with that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brule, yeah, you're exactly correct. The area plan is the default plan, so that's the one that would take precedent. In order to correct it, that's what we're doing with this item today, is if we did decide that, if the commission and the board decided that they would like to have that property be commercial, then this would be the amendment process, and to align the area plan with the general plan on that parcel specifically.
But it wouldn't correct the conflict entirely, because the general plan is showing the demarcate, or the boundary of that commercial area on Pasadena, correct?
Correct. This would just extend the commercial boundary just for this one parcel on the area plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go
One more
ahead.
question for staff. Is there any possibility that that commercial area for this whole section could be split in half for part single family and part commercial? As per se, that with the Pasadena as the breaking point?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mill, I'm not sure if I quite understand the question. Right now, the commercial ends at the back property lines on Pasadena, or on those properties along Pasadena. So the commercial is in their backyard.
Right.
This would just extend it to Pasadena, so there would be this one property on Pasadena that would be commercial. But I'm not sure that I understand exactly what your question is.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I have a couple comments, and then we'll go from there. I would agree there seems to be a pretty consistent conflict here between the area plan and the general plan, being that the line is, in essence, on the back property line instead of the front property line. Given the condition of the roads, given the amount of opposition, I have a hard time personally supporting this particular action, or this particular item. Probably not the first time we'll see this, but I think it's a pretty important decision on how we handle this. So that's what I have at the moment. We're at the table for additional comments, questions, or at this point, a motion. one way or another on this item.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner
the
Abbott.
same reason when I see 60-some signatures here and the effect and the comment, there are many unused, developed, and underdeveloped commercial properties already in our neighborhood which are for sale. There is no shortage of these properties. I would make a motion to not approve this.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion to deny by Commissioner Abbott, a second by Commissioner Meal. Other comments or discussions on this item?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure if it would be appropriate, but I would like to add to this. I would really like to see the conflict between the area plan and the general plan corrected, or request staff to correct that so that it is no longer considered commercial in the general plan, or I don't know what that process, or if it's just too complicated to correct, but I'd like to see it all become residential, and then, so we don't have
Sure.
the conflict between those two plans.
Yeah, maybe staff could look into that and report back. I would assume that would entail a larger general plan amendment for that entire area. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Brill, that's correct. It would take a larger plan amendment. The other thing also, we would have to do extensive outreach to any property owners that might be affected.
If it's not appropriate at this time, I understand that, but I think it would be nice to have it on your list. I'm not sure exactly what your process is. I don't. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we can certainly take a look at it, bring a report back to the commission. I believe the next review of the plan is 25. Yeah, is 2025. We may, Tim, remind me, we may be just, kind of suggesting that we address it at that time.
Okay. If you could look into that, I guess one question I would have would be, when the general plan was put together, the comment that Commissioner Morris brought up about where those demarcation lines were established, it does seem a little odd to establish it on the street when you have one side of the street one and one side of the street the other versus the back property line. I would be curious if this is kind of an anomaly that just happened to fall on the street instead of a back property line, or if that's consistently how the general plan was applied throughout the county. So yeah, if you could look into that and give us an update at a later date, we would appreciate it. And per the request, put it on a list to look into a potential amendment down the road.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for sake of the board's knowledge, Fort Mojave, which is basically where this is, it's on the west side of State Route 95 as you're going into Bullhead City. It's like this whole track has just been ignored for years. Not saying on purpose, it has slipped through the cracks,
Sure.
and it needs some attention.
Sure. Well, I think that's a good point, and I'm sure the board will make note of that per this discussion today, obviously with the maintenance of the roads and the concern of the public. Hopefully that can be looked at a little closer as we move forward. We are at the table. We have a motion for denial and a second. Any other discussion?
I'd like to make a comment. I totally do not like to make a motion to deny something like this that's commercial. But there's just, I think, like Mr. Meal says there, that one area, and there's such a broad thing between the general and the area plan. And as I remember, he described it very well. The general plan doesn't put any restrictions in there, hardly what's got to be done here and there and so forth.
Correct. Thank you.
Makes it hard on people like us,
Yeah, it creates a gray area that's hard to define sometimes. Thank you. Any other comments? Those in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is denied. Item 2B.
Item 2B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor parcel number 227-21084 from an AR agricultural residential zone to a C2 general commercial zone to allow for a commercial retail building in the Fort Mojave vicinity. Due to the previous item, recommended denial by the commissioners, staff would most likely recommend the same for this item because you can't change the rezone or the zoning without having the proper plan amendment, so.
So given that, do we still go through and vote on the item, or does it?
Still have to vote on the item, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, for the same reasons, I'd make a motion to deny this request.
Second.
I have a motion of denial by Commissioner Abbott and a second by Commissioner Jacks. I did have the same two speakers sign up to speak. Do you wish to address this item at all? No. Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other comment or discussion? Those in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's denied. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is an evaluation of a request for a special use permit for assessor parcel number 305-26014B to allow for horse boarding, training, and breeding of up to 20 horses in an AR 10A agricultural residential 10-acre minimum lot size zone in the Golden Valley vicinity. Staff recommends approval with the condition that this special use permit is for horse boarding, training, and breeding of up to 20 horses in an AR 10A zone.
Thank you. Is the applicant for this item present? I'm seeing none. Commissioners, any comments, questions on this item? If there's none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion for approval as recommended by staff.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacks, a second by Commissioner Brule. Any other discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4.
Item 4A is an evaluation of a request for an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from an RDA, Rural Development Area, land use designation to a GC, General Commercial Land Use Designation for assessor parcel numbers 34016-070A, 070B, 076, 077A, 077B, 083, and 087 in the Dolan Springs vicinity. The applicant requests this amendment to the general plan to allow for a travel center and 75-bed motel/hotel. We've received one letter in favor of this item. Staff is recommending approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Would you like to address the commission?
Dr. Khan, I just wanted to thank you.
Please come state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Arthur Khan, and I'm the owner of the property, and I thank you very much for all the coordination and guidance for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is my representative.
I'm Mike Hofstetter with Keller Williams in Kingman. I'm his realtor.
Okay, thank you. Any comments for the applicant from the commission or questions? Thank you.
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Has this been before us before in the Gateway?
Last 2 months.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Abbott, this item has not been before us.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I did have one speaker sign up on this item. Daniel Leatherman. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, members. My name is Daniel Joseph Lamontagne Leatherman. I'm representing myself and also my wife. We own property actually adjacent to this property. We bought it back in the early 90s with the intention of an investment piece of property, also some other properties that we own in Arizona. I generally am in favor of this because I believe that this is a good location for the proposal at this time. In fact, when I did purchase this property, one of the thoughts that I had was that it would make a good location for what they're intending it for at this time, a truck stop, the other facilities along with the truck stop. My question is, because my property is actually behind that property, and it's locked in between the highway 93 and also the property in question. I attempted to get a gate on my property directly off of Highway 93 a number of years ago. I had to apply for it, and at that time I felt that it was not necessary because I was not using the property directly. I have spent some time on the property. I've been out there many times, and also along in the area in Dolan Springs and the river and so forth. I believe it is very beneficial for the community at that location and here in Kingman, and of course for the traveling public. If I have continued to own that property, if there's a fence put between my property and also the property in question, my property would be landlocked unless there was a gate or activity location for my property, unless, of course, I decide to sell the property to enhance this plan at this period of time by Dr. Hahn. I, at this point, would just wonder if that would be a question as far as blocking me in.
I have a question for the,
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner
how
Abbott.
do you get in and out now?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
What's your means of going back and forth from 93 to your property now?
Right now, it's open. I can go on the, excuse me, in the back. There's a road access off of 93 that's actually further north, and I can come in one of those back roads which are there. I don't remember the exact name, but I know that that road goes down to the river, down to the Lake Mojave, and I've been on that a few times. But because of where this property in question and also where my property is, if this continues, will I have access to my property through the property that's in question?
I don't know that this commission can specifically answer that question. I don't know if staff can shed some light on existing roads or easements in the area. Any direct access from the applicant's property to your property would be probably an agreement or an easement between parties if it exists or doesn't exist today. Staff, can you shed any light on, I'm not sure which property is yours, sir, but on roads and easements that do exist in this area?
I have 10 acres there, and a portion of it is on the east side of 93, but most of it's on the west side.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, the subject property, as mentioned, or this Daniel's property, is actually right up against the 93. I believe it's the parcel, is it 2 parcels?
Yes, it is, 2 5-acre parcels.
Yeah, it's the 2 parcels that are right up against the 93. So he would have to petition, so it does have access or frontage along the 93, and that would be essentially its access, but he would have to petition through ADOT to be able to get that access. If there's an existing easement from the road that he's describing to his property, I'm not aware of it. It would be probably described in a title or warranty deed showing that he has access through an adjacent parcel. If that's the case, then the other property owner couldn't block that so that he could access his property. He would still receive his access. But that would have to be found in the warranty deed or title showing an easement to his property. But again, he is fronting the 93 and could possibly have access from the 93, but it would have to go through ADOT.
Thank you. Scott, are his parcels to the north or to the east of the subject parcel?
They are to the east of the subject parcel.
Between the parcel and the
Right,
highway?
yes, between the subject parcel, actually, there's 3 5-acre parcels that are on the west side of myself, and then there's a couple that, there's one that's north, and also there's one that's on the east side of the highway, which is northeast of my property. I will mention that I do have a gate, an access gate. It's a highway access gate to my small portion on the east side. On the east side of 93, there is a gate. There's an access gate which goes directly onto that portion of my property on the east side of Highway 93. And I've used that gate a few times to go onto that portion, which is just a small portion. It's probably less than an acre.
I see.
You see that? There is a gate right down on the bottom portion of that piece of property. It's actually a highway gate, and it's not locked. I've used it a few times.
So is Montier Avenue, does that abut the southern portion of one of Daniel's properties?
Sorry, what was the question, Mr. Chairman?
Monterey, sorry.
Yeah, it
See
looks
that
like
very
that is a publicly dedicated easement or road and would have access along that as well.
So
It's just not improved. It doesn't look like it's improved right
Okay,
now.
but that is a roadway that exists on the south edge of one of his parcels.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So you have that access point and you have potential access through ADOT off of the highway itself. That's about all I think the commission can shed on that particular question for you.
Yeah, the road that he is talking about is actually north of my property. South of my property is actually the BLM property.
Okay.
That's how I did access my property on the west side.
Yeah, so you would have potential access through ADOT, through potentially the BLM. I don't know that we have enough information to say much more than that at this point in time, unless staff has anything else to add. Okay. Any other
have another
questions?
question, but you don't. When I call somebody and talk to somebody in your office, that other question was about the taxes, and the county assessor actually would have to answer that question, I guess. The taxes, if this is approved, my property taxes would probably go up, and because you don't have the answer to that question, I'd have to contact the appropriate entity in Kingman.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Abbott.
to the applicant, I hear what you say. I know that property in there pretty well. I've been out there with my father-in-law many years ago.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of those little roads are just a road someone put in, they put a gate in. And I sympathize with where you're at, and I'm not going to try to give you an answer what to do, but it doesn't have anything to do with what our request is here,
Right.
the way I see it.
But I didn't think it did, but because I have that question, I figured, well, I'll ask that question if you could give me
If
whatever
you get with
answer.
staff later, they could probably give you,
Yeah, I would suggest talking with staff further, but also checking your title report on your property too, to see if there's any easements in place there on any of the
There's a
adjacent
gentleman
properties.
that has a question,
Okay, thank you.
comment.
All right. Thank you, sir. I think that's all we have at this time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Yes, sir, if you'd come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ken Works. I reside in Yucca at 2250 Crystal Springs Road. I just found out yesterday that there's going to be a lot of millings that are going to be used to pave a lot of those roads around there. They're going to be paving it all the way down to the lake. And I don't know if some of these roads that you're talking about are among those roads, but I think it's something that needs to be considered. It might also it should be considered by the applicant also. It may improve or his property values, or maybe even possibly change his plans to some extent for his project. But I think it's something that should be considered by all the parties, but it's just something that everyone didn't know offhand. So I just thought I'd add this information that I just found out yesterday to the equations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any comments, questions of staff or the speakers on this item? Seeing none, we are at the table. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I would move we approve to staff recommendations.
Second motion.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Morris, a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any additional comments or discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4B.
Item 4B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor parcel numbers 34016-070A, 070B, 076, 077A, 077B, 083, and 087 from an AR 5A agricultural residential 5-acre minimum lot size zone to a C2H highway commercial zone to allow for a travel center and 75-bed motel, hotel in the Dolan Springs vicinity. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions, and the letter that we received in favor was for this item as well.
Thank you. We had the same, first of all, the applicant's present. Would you like to address the second item? Any more?
Answer any questions?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Daniel, did you want to add anything to this item or speak to this one as well?
Not at this time, based on what both these properties, they're both affected on both sides of Highway 93, Dr. and ourselves.
Okay. If you need to come to the microphone if you're going to speak, sir. Please state your name and address again for the record.
Daniel Joseph Lamontaine Leatherman in Paris, California is our address. As I said earlier, I do own a small portion of property on the east side of Highway 93, and there is a gate there, so I do have access. And it is actually to the south of the property in question here. So I don't have anything other than what I said. I was mostly concerned with the majority of my property on the west side of 93, just that I could access it if I don't sell it in the interim, which I might. In fact, actually, I think it would enhance the proposal at this time because they'd have more highway frontage to begin with, because I have over 700 feet of highway frontage at this time on the west side, and a small portion of highway frontage on the east side. And this doesn't have anything to do with you people, but in the process, I may decide to go ahead and
Mr. Chair,
sell it.
point of order, I called the question.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. Let's let him finish.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Did she have a question?
Commissioner, go ahead.
I
or
was calling for the question. I'm sorry.
he's speaking about, he's providing some comment, or I understand what you're saying. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. The applicant and his real estate agent are here. I'm sure you can speak with them after about that.
Right.
And as to your access issues, I think there are options there. I would suggest you speak with staff and/or consult your title report on what you legally have for access on your properties.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we are at the table for any additional discussion and/or a motion on this item.
Make a motion that the rezone be approved as presented to us by the staff.
A second.
A motion by Commissioner Jacks, a second by Commissioner Morris. Any other discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good luck. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor parcel number 206-12001 from a C2H 7A Highway Commercial 7-acre minimum lot size zone to a C2H 1A Highway Commercial 1-acre minimum lot size zone to allow for a minor land division in the Kingman vicinity. The applicant is seeking to split the property into 2 parcels, separating the commercial structures on the northeast corner onto its own parcel. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Would you like to address the commission? Please state your name and address for the record.
Donna Kraus with Mojave Engineering. And the owners are here to answer any questions of the commission, should you have any. And I just want to remind the commission that utilities will be provided by the City of Kingman, Unisource, and Frontier Communications.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Thank you. Commission, any discussion or comments for staff? We are at the table. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Meal, a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We have added item 6, re-election of chair and vice chair to this agenda.
We just did that.
That's what I thought. Did we not formally adopt chair and vice chair, staff?
Not on my agenda.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, according to the bylaws, your annual meeting is where you elect the chair and the vice chair, and that's your April meeting. If there are resignations, as happened, during 2018, then the chairman or vice chairman who are elected, between the annual meetings are basically there to fill the remainder of the term.
I see.
So when Mr. Azarmi resigned in December, Commissioner Gordon, Commissioner Brule were elected to fill the remainder of Mr. Azami's term for Commissioner Brule. It was the remainder of Mr. Gordon's term.
I see. So now we need to re-elect for the next fiscal year here.
That's correct.
Okay. Very good. Well, I guess we'll take nominations for chairman or recommendations.
I nominate we recommend the approval for the current slate Mr. Gordon as chair and Ms. Brule as vice chair.
Second.
We have a nomination, or a recommendation and a second. Since I thought I'd signed up for a lot longer term for this, I'll go along with that and stay in my position. Commissioner, will you join me?
Absolutely.
All right. We have a motion to approve Commissioner Gordon as chairman and Commissioner Brule as vice chairman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I think that concludes our meeting today. We stand adjourned.
You had your chance. It was a small one, but.